It only took 15 seconds. Guns fired through an opening in an abandoned house. 3 Oklahoma soldiers killed. The deadliest day for Oklahoma soldiers since the Korean War. The Deadliest Day is produced by the Oklahoman. It examines those 15 seconds in Afghanistan that left 3 Oklahomans dead, 2 more seriously wounded, and all of the survivors of this Oklahoma National Guard unit shocked and scarred. It happened in September of 2011 in the Paktia province in Afghanistan. The small kill team, led by Staff Sergeant Dwayne Kellogg, had an order to eliminate enemy fighters planting deadly roadside bombs. The Oklahoma soldiers had set up a sniper position overlooking a road, but had retreated to an abandoned house to hide during the daylight. From there, mistakes were made. They had taken off their protective armor while resting and didn't have a full 360-degree view. They were ambushed in the afternoon at 4:10 p.m. on September 9th, 2011 by 3 insurgents at close range. We sat down with senior reporter Philip O'Connor in the Oklahoman's newsroom to learn what he saw behind the eyes of the soldiers interviewed. They're in a house with no top. How odd was it that these insurgents came across at 4 in the afternoon? All of these things seem unlikely.
These guys were sitting in an abandoned house. They were resting. They were waiting for night to come so that they could go back out and continue their mission. They made some critical mistakes in terms of a fundamental of soldiering is that you always maintain 360-degree security. You always know everything that's going on 360 degrees around you.
What did they say about that? Since it was such close quarters and there were enough of them, how did they not have 360?
That's the great question. And I think it's the one that Dwayne Kellogg struggles to answer today. I mean, he admits that he messed up. He messed up. And because of that, they were approached from an angle that they weren't watching, and before they knew it, these guys were on top of them. And 15 seconds later, you have the worst day in the history of the Oklahoma National Guard since Korea.
So give him a hug and tell him I love you. Couldn't come back, right? He said, "Yep, Mom, I promise you. Look, you promised me right there at that door right there. I'll be back. I'll be all right. Don't worry about me, Mom. You take care of yourself." I said, "All right, son. I'll see you when you get back." He didn't come back. Not the way I wanted him to.
Was it just an accident? The battalion commander thinks it's his theory is that these guys were actually the insurgents that the team had been sent out to find.
They were going to eventually plant some bombs along the road.
Right, and that the insurgents were coming to hide out in the same house to wait till nightfall so that they could go plant the bomb. They may have ended up being killed by the very people they'd come to hunt.
You have an understanding, having been in this business this long, and that's certainly something that can happen. I don't know if you can really train to prepare to actually lose friends, lose soldiers that work for you. It's obviously very somber experience, and it's just, you don't want it to happen.
You can't, OJT, on-the-job training. There's lots of jobs where you can go out and get on-the-job training. In a combat zone with people trying to kill you, it's not the time to do on-the-job training. Not in that environment. We had done a lot of talking about putting together small kill teams. We had never practiced small kill teams.
There is an investigation that takes place immediately afterwards, and charges are filed. And Dwayne Kellogg is the one that is being held responsible for that. It gets kicked upstairs to the division, who recommend that essentially Dwayne Kellogg's career is over, that he never lead men in combat again. But that is sent back to Colonel Booz to make the final decision. And it's Colonel Booz that knows Dwayne, has known him for several years, and knows his history and his background, and knows intimately about how the mission and what's happened is going to affect him. And in the end, he shows mercy. And Dwayne is allowed to continue with his military career. Some of the rest of the team continued on with the National Guard. Some of them got out and went on with their lives. Colonel Booz is still in the Guard. He has a couple more years till retirement, but for the most part, most continue to serve.
Every day is a challenge. I mean, I'll wake up one day and not want to be around anybody. I'll stay in my room, door locked, watching movies or reading a book or praying, trying to call one of my deacons back home. And then, most days, like I said, I'm a faithful person, and that helps so much because I'm thankful for the days that God gives me. I don't know if I'll ever get rid of the guilt or forgive myself, but I do what I can to honor them and to remember them.
When you looked Kellogg in the eyes and you said, hey, walk me through that 15 seconds, what did he tell you? What was the emotion what was going through his mind as he was telling you this story that you could see from your perspective?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like, I've done so many interviews with so many different people, and no one reacts the same. And I will say Dwayne is very, I don't want to say emotionless, but he's very, he's just kind of level about explaining what happened. And you think you might be able to touch something there, but I think for him it's so, he just doesn't view it with emotion so much. When you talk about his friends, that kind of stuff, he does. But when you actually ask him about the moment of the attack, the one thing he does say is it's like, you think you want to be there. You think this is why you've come. This is what thrills you about the military, is the idea of seeing combat. And then when you finally see it, you come to realize that's the last thing you ever want to see. And so I think that's the one thing that he said that really stuck with me.
They want it until they see it, and then they won't want it anymore. I mean, it's not as glorious as what everyone sees, what everyone wants it to be.
You traveled to Alabama for this interview, correct? And
Yeah.
you spent a couple days with the guy. What was your impression of him?
Right. He's a great guy. I mean, he's just really, he's like a typical soldier, and he's very respectful, prompt, on time, all those kinds of things, but just a nice guy. I mean, he's just a small town kid. People have this misperception of what war is from television and movies and stuff, and it's not. It's messy, and it's cruel, and it's horrible, and the effects that it has on men and women and those who serve, it can be devastating. I mean, these guys will live with what happened over there for the rest of their lives. I mean, even if they, some bear physical scars from it, but they all will bear emotional scars. And it's just clear, 2 years later, I mean, they still are tormented by what happened on that day.
That's Philip O'Connor with the Oklahoman. Footage was shot by our Greg Singleton and Tim Money. The videos were produced by Paige Dillard, graphics provided by Todd Pendleton and his crew, and Kyle Roberts. Our sincere thanks to the soldiers and family members who were willing to talk with us in this series. Our thoughts and prayers go out to those who were killed and wounded, and to those who carry the mental burden from that deadliest day.